Most people think of liberty as a solitary thing, a fortress, a birthright guarded by iron walls. They imagine freedom as what you get when nobody's telling you what to do. But the real logic of liberty, the kind that actually changes the world, runs much deeper. True liberty is never just the absence of chains. It's the presence of the conditions that make flourishing possible. If your life is shaped by hunger, fear, or the arbitrary power of others, you can't call yourself free in any meaningful sense. This is the starting point of the Enlightenment, and the root of what I mean by enlightened self-interest. The architects of modern freedom weren't naive. They understood human nature. They saw that everyone wants to improve their own lot, and that this impulse, call it self-interest, call it ambition, call it the urge to live, can either be the engine of progress or the seed of endless conflict. The Enlightenment wagered that if we get the rules right, if we make dignity universal and the law impartial, then the pursuit of self-interest could be turned outward. It could become the scaffolding for a society that lifts everyone. Not just the lottery where the winner takes all. But this project was always incomplete. For every revolution that knocked down a tyrant, there was a new form of domination, wealth, race, class, gender, waiting to spring up and fill the vacuum. The language of self-interest was captured by those who already had power. Suddenly, freedom became an excuse for exploitation. Liberty was turned against the people it was meant to liberate. And here's where the real Enlightenment socialist insight comes in. Liberty cannot be real unless it is universal. The very logic of self-interest, when illuminated by reason and historical memory, leads us to recognize how deeply our lives are entangled. My well-being is shaped by the health of the society I live in, by the water I drink, by the air we all share, by the education, care, and opportunity afforded to others. The fate of my neighbor is not a footnote to my story. It is woven into the substance of my freedom. You see it everywhere if you're willing to look honestly. A society that tolerates deep poverty, that lets its members rot, is a society that breeds resentment, violence, decay. The walls always crumble. Injustice metastasizes. This is not just a moral argument. It is a fact of nature. The most rigorous studies in biology, ecology, economics, and history reveal the same pattern. Systems that nurture their parts thrive. Systems that let some parts cannibalize the rest collapse. Public health isn't just a line on a government budget. It's the bulwark that keeps plagues from becoming cataclysms. Social trust is not a luxury. It is the glue that allows complex societies to function. When we ignore these truths, we pay for it sooner or later with breakdown and chaos. So what does enlightened self-interest look like in practice? It is not the pursuit of gain at the expense of others. It is the recognition that our gains are deeply linked. You want a world where your children have a future? You need every child to have a future. You want your streets to be safe, your economy resilient, your culture vibrant. Then you need a society that refuses to write anyone off as disposable. The logic is relentless. The more we make freedom real for each other, the more secure our own freedom becomes. Systemic compassion, then, is not an act of charity. It's not noblesse oblige, and it's not a safety valve to prevent revolution. It's the recognition that in the age of exponential technology and global risk, no one's liberty survives alone. We build systems, education, healthcare, housing, food, justice, not because we are saints, but because reason itself demands it, because the alternative is slow motion collapse, reaction, and violence. Systemic compassion is the rational architecture of a world where self-interest is not a war cry, but a common bond. When you internalize this, the whole map changes. The fight for the dignity of others is not an act of sacrifice. It's an investment in the only kind of freedom worth having, one that is stable, resilient, and real. The old model of the Enlightenment shattered the divine right of kings, but left too many people outside the castle gates. Enlightenment Socialism takes up that unfinished business. It demands we make liberty material, not just legal. A society where the basics, food, shelter, medicine, time, are guaranteed, not parceled out according to luck or the whims of capital. Not because we are utopians, but because the price of their absence is too high for any of us to bear. If you want a future worth living in, this is the path. Not rugged individualism, not winner take all, not a civilization built on the backs of the broken. The only logic that works, the only liberty that lasts, is the one we build together. Enlightened self-interest, seen clearly, always becomes systemic compassion, not as an afterthought, but as the next step in human evolution. The real legacy of the Enlightenment is not freedom as isolation, but freedom as the shared condition of a just society. And history will not forgive us if we fail to finish what they began.